Okay, just a general rule of thumb here. If you automatically assume that all gun owners must be backwoods hillbillies and therefore are automatically racist, that's pretty friggin' racist. What's up, y'all? How you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so the other day I saw a video on Instagram made by Lucas Bodkin over at T-Rex Arms, and it really got me thinking because this is a video I've been wanting to do for a while. As you can see, I'm out here in some beautiful Ozarks evening weather, out here with my makeshift tire run workout area. I did have a cardboard silhouette up there, but some winds had other plans. Got some tires over here. There we go. Get some sledgehammer training in on those, but anyway, I digress. So, this has been weighing heavily on my mind for a while. I've been wanting to make a video on this for a while, and it's something that just really gets on my nerves. Kind of like the video I made the other day about the whole assault rifle bullcrap. And that is the automatic assumption by a lot of people, namely those on the Democratic left side of the aisle, who just automatically assume that anybody who owns a gun must be a racist. I've had this said to me so many times, it is so friggin' annoying, because it's absolutely false. For one thing, if you're just assuming that anyone who owns a gun must be a backwoods hillbilly and therefore automatically a racist, that's pretty friggin' racist in my opinion. But I digress. So, the problem with this idea is that the Second Amendment is for everyone. It is a universal right. Anyone who is a natural-born or naturalized American citizen has the right to keep and bear arms according to the United States Constitution. There is no limit in the Constitution anywhere that you look, especially in the Second Amendment. There is not even a mention of anything about race, color, creed, political affiliation, ideology, favorite soft drink. It does not matter. Everyone across the board in the United States has the right to keep and bear arms. You have the right to keep them, you have the right to train in them, or train with them rather, you have the right to use them in the defense of yourself and or others if that need were ever to arise. And also, this is another big thing that pops up. Yes, when I say everybody, I do mean everybody. Now, I mentioned there's no such thing as a restriction for race, color, creed, gender, whatever. There's also no restriction for political groups. Everyone in the United States is allowed to keep and bear arms. They're allowed to train with them. They're allowed to keep them. They're allowed to hunt with them. They're allowed to keep them in the home for your defense and the defense of this nation, if when that ever becomes a necessity. That includes us and the people who don't like us. So, a prime example of that would be back during 2020 when all these extremist leftist groups started walking around, basically threatening to shoot people, threatening to burn cities. Well, they were burning cities. Threatening to just cause all kinds of violent mischief. The first thing that comes into mind is the Not Effing Around Coalition, NFAC. Now, you may recall these guys were marching around with Jam 22s and 90s black SWAT gear, just daring any of the good old boys from back in the backwoods to come out and fight them. Yeah, that would have been a short but interesting fight. Anyway, they have the dubious record, among all the groups who were protesting in 2020, of causing actual casualties. Their own casualties. I believe there was a negligent discharge that nearly killed 3 of their own people, but I digress. Those people, as much as I disagree with their ideology and very much disagree with their methods, they have the right to keep and bear arms. Antifa has the right to keep and bear arms. Just like any right-wing group has the right to keep and bear arms. Any regular, ordinary citizen, Joe Blow, in the middle of the city or out in the backwoods who keeps a shotgun next to the bed, they all have the right to keep and bear arms. As I've said before, it is a universal right. It does not matter who you are, who you love, where you came from, who you pray to, who you vote for. It does not matter. At all. A universal right is a universal right. And assuming that anyone who believes in said right must be a foaming-at-the-mouth racist, it's just wrong. And also, it's idiotic. It's just, don't do it. Do better, people. Come on. Now, I want to touch a little bit more on something I said a minute ago. That is, you have the right not only to keep and bear arms, but to train with them. Now, this is a big bone of contention with a lot of people, especially those who don't believe that we should actually have the God-given right to keep and bear arms for self-defense and the defense of others in our nation. But once again, I digress. Because in the wording of the Constitution, or rather in the Second Amendment, rather, it says in the wording, a well-regulated militia necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, there's been a lot of argument over the last 2 centuries or so about what is the meaning of militia. Now, for a lot of people, they just have the modern context to go by. No, a militia is not a bunch of, backwoods rednecks in Confederate flag t-shirts emptying an AK-47 into a hillside saying, we're going to go out and take out all the insert minority here. No, that is not what it is. If you go back and read other documents that are contemporary with the Constitution, specifically the Militia Act of 1792, that's my personal favorite, they actually lay out, in period language, what a militia is. A militia is every able-bodied citizen. Back then they specified, I believe, all able-bodied men between the ages of 17 and 65 or somewhere in that range. Someone correct me down in the comments. I know here in Missouri, our Constitution was amended many, many years ago to change that. Oh, I had a little dip in my mouth there. Oh well. Anyway, all able-bodied men and women, at least this is the wording of the Missouri Constitution, all able-bodied men and women between the ages of 16 and 65. That is the militia. In fact, in the Militia Act of 1792, the wording specifically laid out a list of weapons, ammunition, gear, and kit that were required for all members of the militia to own and regularly train with. In fact, if you were a citizen back in those days, one of your biggest obligations was every month you had to show up to the common ground, rather. I believe it was called a muster field back then, and you had to take part in militia training. Now, notice that sounds very similar to a modern-day National Guard. That's because the Militia Act of 1792 was overturned back in the 30s and replaced with the National Guard, and they basically nationalized the idea of a militia, and then later weaseled it and made it part of the official American Armed Forces, which it was never intended to be. So, by the wording of original government documents, in the Constitution itself, and in many, many laws written at that same time, the militia is you. The militia is me. The militia is everyone that we see around us. We are all responsible for the defense of our community, the defense of our nation, and of course the defense of ourselves and our homes. People who want to take our guns away want to take that away. It's largely been taken away from us over the last, century or so, but it's coming back. 25 states, including mine, and I'm very proud of this, 25 states in the Union currently have constitutional carry, meaning a permit is not required to carry either a handgun or a long gun. In fact, a lot of states are trying to push legislation to allow 18 to 21-year-olds to carry, even though you technically have to be 21 to purchase a handgun, but I digress on that. And when people make these assumptions that, all gun owners must be racist, all gun owners must be bigots, if you own guns, you just want to go out and kill people, or you just want to go out and slaughter animals just for the hell of it. That is all BS, guys. It is B-friggin-S. The right to keep and bear arms is, was, and always shall be an inherent natural right of all American citizens, be ye natural born or naturalized. If you came here from another country where very likely you were not allowed to own guns, and actually I know several people who this actually applies to, people who came over here from countries where guns were not only discouraged, they were absolutely outlawed. You could go to jail or worse yet be killed if you were caught with a gun in your home or especially on your person. They came over here, and I know at least one guy who has a safe full of guns that puts me to shame. I mean, I wish I had the arsenal this guy has, and I definitely wish I had the skills this guy has. This guy has served in like 3 militaries and been there, done that, and bought the t-shirt. But I digress on that. Basic point of this video, and I'm going to be closing soon. I know this is kind of long. Right to keep and bear arms. It is an inherent right for all of us, no matter what we believe. No matter who we vote for, who we pray to, who we love, any of that doesn't matter. If you are a free American citizen living here in these United States, the Second Amendment absolutely applies to you. It is not about hunting. It is definitely not about racism. And no matter what anybody tells you, it's not about white supremacy. I mean, come on, guys. Do better, learn some history. Because actually, I'll go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I know I said I was closing. One of the most restrictive gun control laws that I can think of is actually the one that resulted in the birth of the National Rifle Association. Because at the end of the Civil War in the antebellum South, there were actually many, many laws on the books that said people of color could not own weapons. They made it very, very clear. In fact, it was very specific. But then, the National Rifle Association comes along. They were formed specifically to arm former slaves, to teach them how to use these weapons, to teach them how to defend themselves against the people who back then were very, very much bigoted, very, very much racist, and the people that are now being demonized as harbingers of doom, mass murderers, whatever you want to call them. Well, they were actually the ones who armed those people to defend themselves, and it worked out very, very well for those people in the near future that came afterward. Ignore the cats. They're kind of meowing out there. But in closing, if anyone ever tries to tell you that the right to keep and bear arms is not an inherent right and is somehow a condition of doom, it is the mark of a bigot or any crap like that, it's just not true. Not true at all. I've grown up around gun owners. I train many, many gun owners. I'll be releasing some schedules here pretty soon because I'm getting very close to starting my own training operation. But I have trained white people, I have trained black people, I have trained men, I have trained women, I have trained Hispanics, I have trained children, I have trained adults, I have trained Christians, I have trained Muslims, I have trained everybody in the past. And they all had one thing in common. They were so happy to now be able to defend themselves and what they believe in. Because as the great Dave Chappelle once said, the Second Amendment is there in case the first one doesn't work out. Anyone who tells you different is lying to you or trying to sell you something. Probably both. This is Ozark Powler signing off. Stay armed, stay vigilant, and stay frosty, my friends.